Okay, so hey everyone, I have some practical showcase for you on how to use AI across the whole API lifecycle development. I'm Matyáš from the X Heroes, and a part that we help companies with their developer experience, creating and maintaining SDKs and APIs. We help them adopt AI specific to their workflows and all the teams they work there. We do consultancy, but we do also workshops where we teach developers, but also business analysts on how to use tools like Visual Studio Code with Copilot. We do also custom development with large language models. And I think we can all see today that the AI development landscape is vast. We have all the IDEs like GitHub Copilot. We have AI-first IDEs like Cursor, and also like agentic AR in our CLI nowadays, like Claude Core or Either. And we can even build full-stack applications without coding, with just prompting with tools like V0 or Lovable. And AI also enters like the more standard platforms. For example, Postman, they are working on their Postbot extension that will allow you to generate documentation, help you with tests, or even debug the APIs directly in Postman. And overall, the AI gets involved in each phase of the API development lifecycle. I will go through each phase, mention some use cases from our experience, and also mention some problems and how you can deal with them when working with AI in general. So we can take a hypothetical financial health score API that we need to deliver to the front-end developer that already has some kind of UI. So in the beginning, in the planning phase, we can start by pulling all the context we have as a markdown files. Because markdown is a good format for AI, because AI can semantically understand better the content, and we can also put other files such as CSVs, so we can generate some initial data structures for our API. But for the CSVs or large data in general, be cautious, because the AI will start hallucinating when the file is too big. So even if you ask some simple questions like how many lines are in the CSV, the AI will more likely hallucinate. But then we can use AI for the context to generate some initial diagrams to get overview of the solution we want to implement. From our experience, the Mermaid.js syntax or framework works great. Also Plant UML, but sometimes it takes some iterations to make it work. Also in the planning phase, we can use AI to examine the existing endpoints. That's useful if we have a large code base and we want to avoid duplicates. And if you have some standards of our naming endpoints, we can also make a draft with AI for this. Then if we start designing the entities and their relations with AI, and also generate some types or interfaces if you're using TypeScript, or even some initial classes or objects in your code. Then, as we heard, we can also generate OpenAPI specifications right from the start, from all the context and diagrams we have. So this way, if we work with other teams, then they can review it and give us some initial feedback. And apart from that, AI helps us in coding process. If we have some already existing examples of the API resources, or we have some standards, we can also put them as a markdown and let the AI scaffold the API resources, which we then complete with the business logic we need. And also, if our API is dependent on some external API, the API is public, then in Cursor, you can, for example, just mention the link of the documentation on specification, and the IDE will pull it as a context. Or if you have an internal API and you have the repository, you can just pull it and git ignore it so it doesn't include in your history, and let AI to generate a mock server that you can develop locally against. Then if we have already some code and logic, we can start generating unit tests and integration tests. generate mock data for the tests, and also let AI to like maybe suggest some edge cases which we didn't think about. And if we have our pull request ready, we can use tools like CodeRabbit to conduct a review of our pull request. And also, there's quite a new feature. You can already mention GitHub Copilot directly in the GitHub's web application and assign tasks to the Copilot. So that could be good for some quick fixes that we see in our pull request. And when we successfully deployed it, we can use AI to generate semantic versions, change logs, and document our solution. But this was like the ideal workflow. I think we have like the great results. We have everything in one place, ideally one source of truth, and the front-end developer implemented the API. But the AI doesn't always work. I guess a lot of you experience that it can hallucinate, it can break existing functionality, and the code quality can be sometimes quite poor. And you might even see slowdown in the development, which I guess is not what you want when you use AI. So we have some tips about that. And the first one can be quite simple, and that is like improve how you prompt. You can use different prompting techniques for different tasks you do. So when you implement something like more complex, some like whole API resource, you can use chain of thought prompting technique that will like guide the AI to like talk about it as it implements step by step. So then it's much easier to review. You can also provide examples of existing endpoints or overall like the code what you have. And also think about how you handle the context, because when you talk with AI in just one chat, it will more likely start to hallucinate as you will run out the context window soon or later. You can also use like different models for different tasks, because if you are just doing some refactoring or doing some quick scaffolding, you can use some faster models like Gemini Flash. But when you work on something more complex and you want AI to think more, you can use reasoning models like Claude Sonnet. But ideally, you don't want to write prompts from scratch every time. Like the Cursor or Visual Studio Code with Copilot, they have their specification files for AI, that's like rules or instructions. So it's ideal when you like work in a team, you have all the prompts and instruction already in place. They are part of your Git version, and anyone can improve them. You can also reference a documentation of your languages and technologies in the code, so AI gets a better overview about what's your tech stack and how it should behave. Also to include some code templates that I mentioned if you have. And also it's good to think about how you work with AI, because if you just say implement all this API and the AI changes 30 files at once, it's pretty hard to go like all of them. So you can just like make it to break down into smaller tasks, make AI to behave a bit like a software architect first and give you like a draft of the whole implementation. And if you are satisfied with that in few iterations, then you can eventually implement step by step with AI, with your cooperation, review each step and update the rules, documentation, or even update the context. If you have a task list in like the order which you want to implement the API resource, you can also have it in Markdown as a checklist. And after each iteration, the AI can even like check or tick the task for you. And overall, I think it's important in companies to build some kind of AI culture. We at these heroes, we actually like allocate time to people to work with the latest tools, experiment with them with different techniques and use them in the real world. And we have a regular sharing sessions where we talk about what worked for us and what not. And we try to standardize the knowledge in form of the instruction files, in the repository, or in some form of internal knowledge and best practices. And eventually this way we like adopt AI and we change the way how we develop APIs. So also for you, we prepared some examples for Visual Studio Code setup. We also include some advanced prompting techniques. So you feel free to fork it and use it in your own repository. And if you want to chat more about AI, you can hit me up after, and enjoy the rest of the evening.
Quick question. How much time do you see yourself actually spending on polishing and actually creating the prompts and all the stuff like related to that?
Yeah. It may be dependent about like what you are building. If you are building like standard REST API for a web application, then like the AI has much more training data and it's easier rather than if you have like some specific workflows. But yeah, it's good to like experiment with the prompts and have them versioned in the file so anyone can like reuse them and get pretty much the same results each time.
And any good tips how to version except putting into Git your prompts?
Like apart from like having them in Git, then like you should like inform your team when you are changing the prompt they rely on.
It was really good tips. I heard about this generating sequence diagrams and generating documents. So we use AI to generate documents and the another AI to consume the document to build the API, something like that, right? So when it happens, so is it seamless or you face some issues like generating something with AI and feeding something again to AI to give that information what you need?
Yeah, like if you generate a lot of documentation, like business documentation, or if you let IT analysts to use it, then like it can be like 30% like garbage, or it can be like a very wordy. The AI can be a very wordy, so then you can get some like hallucinations or stuff. So just like in using every other tool, like the human part is still in the process, and it also depends, like what format are you generating the documentation in. So there can be some like if you have like a PDF and transitioning to Markdown, there can be some losses in the process maybe.